Hello YouTube, Pastor Jack here. Welcome to my channel, First Things First with Pastor Jack. We're in the series now on the 7 C's of history, and we're in the first one of creation. I did one episode on this already. Today, in the second episode, we're going to look at what does the exegesis tell us of the story of creation. Okay, what you have here on your screen is my Logos Bible software open up to the creation story. At the bottom down here, I have my reverse interlinear that I have set up to give me several different items here. Of course, at first it has, the English version of the ESV, and then under it directly is the word that was used in the original text with lema, which is, sometime I'll come and explain what each of these are, but basically it's the root word that was used. And in Hebrew, the difference in the root word and the actual word that was used has, I've been told, a little less significance than it does in Greek, but again, I'm not an expert on Hebrew, which is what we're looking at now. Then, of course, down at the bottom, we have Strong's number for each word that will give us the work that Strong did. And if you don't have a Strong's Concordance, I highly suggest that you get you one. They are very, very good. So here we see the first verse we talked about yesterday. In the beginning, God created. The word created there is the word bar. We talked about that yesterday. It means created from nothing, the heavens and earth. And then we get into this in the beginning, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. This is where the theologians start to argue. Some believe that there was a beginning before Genesis 1:1, and that God had created the earth, and some way it had gotten to a place that it was without form and void. They tend to want to say God could never create something that was without form and void. Then another group, and I am with that group, and I'm not a theologian, by the way. I'm a pastor. I'd rather be a pastor as a theologian. But I believe that God created bar. From nothing, he made the heavens and earth. All the material that he needed to create everything that's been created, he created right here in Genesis 1:1. I believe he used different verbs in the rest of Genesis than bar, except one time when he's talking about man, because he was using what he created here to make it into what he wanted it to be in the rest of the creation story. It looked without form and void because it didn't look like the beautiful blue oval that we see when we see a picture from the moon of the earth. It was without form and void, but God's rest of his creation work made it into the beautiful, marvelous, perfect place. And so from there on, we notice that the verses, for the most part, start with, and God said. Here, the third and fourth verse starts with, and God said, and then that was the first day, then, and God said, and we can see that was the second day, and God said, and God said again, and it was a third day, so there was 2 God saids on the third day, then, and God said, and if we can roll this up, we'll see that's a 4th day, and God said, and it's a 5th day, and God said, and it was the 6th day. God said twice on the 6th day. So God was vocal in his creation, and he spoke, and we can see here when we click on the word said that they're Yamar, which means if we looked it up, and we can do that by simply right-clicking this, go over, I like the TWOT, which is the workbook of the Old Testament, theological workbook, and we can see that it means to speak, to say to oneself. So Jesus was, or God was speaking here, and he was either speaking to the Trinity or speaking to oneself, or he was looking ahead in time and speaking what he wanted to happen, so that when he gave Moses his story, that it would make sense to us that God made everything this at this time, and then he spoke it into being, all that material that he had made all these other days. I believe that's what the children of Israel, when Moses gave them this text, I believe that's what they read in it. Let's talk about something else they read in it. He said, and the evening and the morning was the first day. If we look at the word day here, yom, I'm not sure exactly how you pronounce that, and I'm sure that that's not the right way. That's all I'm sure of. But we can look it up, and it talks about a day, a time, a year. So when the children of Israel heard these words, they heard that it was a day. They heard that it was a day. It was used in all these scriptures. The same exact word was used. All these Old Testament scriptures, the same exact word was used in a lot of it's here in Moses' writings in the first 5 books that they got. It was telling it was a day. Now, why is that important? Well, exegesis says we need to figure out what the original hearers of this thought. And today people try to make it mean all kinds of things, like 1,000 years. Let's talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, let's talk just a minute. If the original hearers heard the word day and they took it to be 6 24-hour days, what are we going to use to change that? Are we going to use science? I'm not. Science doesn't know. It's nobody was there during it. It was not observed. The only person that observed it was God, and he told us it was 6 days. He told Moses it was 6 days. The Jews, when they first heard it, knew it was 6 days. Well, preacher, we got all this scientific information now that we should take into consideration. What the fact that they first said it was hundreds of years, and then it was thousands of years, and then it was tens of thousands of years, and now that's not enough, so it's millions of years, and now it's billions of years, because they still know that's not enough. See, they can't make it work. That's why they say that. They're atheists. They're not going to say what the Bible said. I'm a pastor. I'm going to say what the Bible says. It was 6 days. Prove that wrong. You'll never do it. Matter of fact, they are knowing now that even billions of years is not long enough because of DNA. DNA, they have tried to reproduce DNA. They take all different pieces of DNA and try to reproduce the original DNA, and they can't. You know why they can't? Because the materials it's made out of, it all has to be there at the same time. There was a great scientist that, was just so troubled by the Darwin's theory and Big Bang theory and trying to make that work. And he finally just went home from work sick one day, and he had a Bible there. He started reading it, and he come to realize that Bible was the only way it could have happened. That God said this and breathed into their nostrils, and they became a living soul. All the DNA had to be there for Adam to live. All of it had to be there simultaneously. It could not evolve over any amount of time. That man went on, he's dead now, but he went on to work for a great church out in California and teach at their seminary. And he would debate anybody that wanted to debate the topic, and they all lost because DNA cannot just appear. It cannot create itself. It cannot be deformed and fix itself. DNA is perfect, and every cell makes it perfectly, and it has to have all the DNA that's there to make the next cell. They can't, it's not something that could occur over a period of billions and billions of years. It had to all be spoken into being at one time. And that's what God said he did. Instantaneously, all the DNA was there for Adam to be made. Instantaneously, all the DNA was there for Eve to be made. And that's the only way it could happen. So you're going to let people that don't know what they're talking about, that can't prove anything that they try to prove, and you're going to let them say how that the world was created. I'm a pastor. I'm going with the Word of God. Okay, real quick, I will put a link in the description on the YouTube video that the pastor that scientist went to work for his school, and let him tell the story. I believe he says his name. I don't remember it, but I just want to make sure you got that link, and it will be in the description. Okay, one last exegesis outtake from this I want to give you. You remember a couple of the rules I gave you was that you need to look at the original text and make sure if there's an English word that's used, before you make a huge deal out of the English word, you need to make sure it was in the original text. And I just hit on let here in the third verse, let there be light. And if you notice here where it shows let there, you can see there's no Hebrew words there. And these arrows are pointing to that the interpreter used the English word be to substitute the let there. So it didn't say let there. God said be light. That's actually, what was said. Why is that important? Well, let's see. You can see that it's here again. There's not a word let. It points towards, and you can see it highlighted here, the word gathered together. And that word was put in to support gathered together. We go back up here. Let there was put in to support the word be. If we look at it here, let thee was put in to support the word sprout, which is the noun, and we talked about that yesterday. Again, this is a way to tell what words were in the original text. It's not funny. It was when I first realized what was happening, but I heard a preacher preach a sermon one time about God letting the world be created. He let the world be created because of all these lets. And he was reading the King James, and they're all there. And what he didn't understand is that those words wasn't even in the original. So, you need to be mindful and look for words that's not there. Not that those words need to be taken out. That's not what I'm saying. It's part of the publishing of Bibles. It's part of the interpretation from one language to another. They have to add some words in order to make it readable. And, if we had a straight word-for-word translation, we would all have trouble reading it. We would all struggle with it. But we need to keep up with what they did and make sure we don't make a big deal out of nothing like that would happen here by using the word let. So that is some of that exegesis where I was talking about how we are responsible to do this work and come back and look at that preacher that preached that sermon was wrong. He was on something that wasn't there. He was running down the wrong rabbit hole, a country boy might say. So that's just another tidbit. Until next video, keep the first things first, and we'll see you on the next video.